We're looking back at what has been an interesting, unforgettable year, that is 2023. And as the year comes to an end, we're going to put the spotlight on some of the standout events and happenings of the year. And one of the biggest happenings of the year was the 2023 general elections. In the build-up to that was a political season that has seen Nigerians become a lot more engaged, a lot more participating, not just in terms of conversations, but in terms of shaping the narratives. And also, one of the conversations around that is what Nigeria looks like going forward, especially after the 2023 general election. So we're going to spotlight some of the politics of the day, especially around identity politics, some of those issues that have come to the fore in the course of the campaign season, the quality of the election itself, the litigations that followed suit, vis-a-vis where we're headed to as far as the development of our democracy is concerned. So let's introduce you to our guests. We have joined us in the studio to help us navigate some of those issues. The outgoing chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, Yusuf Yabagi, is joining us on the program. Yusuf Yabagi is the national chairman of the Action Democratic Party. I think I got that correctly. Also joining us in the program to analyze some of the developments is Dengefa Angilapu. Dengefa Angilapu is a research analyst with the Center for Democracy and Development. He's also a political scientist interested in research and teaching on development challenges in the global south, specifically focusing on issues around democracy, identity politics, and conflict. Well, right pegs in the right holes. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on Daybreak. Compliments of the season to both of you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Let's start with the politician first, because we'd like to get your perspective on what has been a memorable 2023. For all the right and wrong reasons, I dare say. How would you sum it up in your view? The campaign season, the politics of the year, and then the elections.
I think we have moved on as a nation when you talk about building democracy, because what defines democracy is ability to conduct an election and form a government. Today we have a government at the national level, sub-national levels, and we can say that we are marching on to ensure that this economy becomes the promise of greatness, which is what it is. So because politics and the economy, there's a very strong nexus between the two. So politics cannot survive without the economy performing. And today, like you know, our economy is underperforming. If you look at our place in the sub-Saharan sector, and even the emerging economies, you can see that Nigeria is lagging behind. The only saving grace is the fact that at the helm of affairs, we have people that I think have what it takes to turn things around. Although, like we all know, it's not easy, to run a big economy like Nigerian economy. When you look at the underlying conditions, the issue of corruption, the issue of infrastructure development, the issue of restiveness, the issue of youth unemployment. So you find that, yes, it's an economy that has very strong fundamentals, but the elements that will transform this economy to be what it's supposed to be, they are at, if you like, a very problematic stage, of management. I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about the fact that what we have in place today, as a result of what emerged from the political campaigns, does not reflect what most people would want in terms of how do we tone down the emphasis on those primordial sentiments, because it does not help solving the microeconomic problems that we have. at the macro level.
Is that submission of yours informed by the fact that you are part of the opposition?
No, it's not about opposition. We're talking about the national aspect of the country.
Yeah.
The how does politics sit in the Nigerian situation? The Nigerian situation today is you are talking about how we got to where we are today.
That's right.
And I'm telling you that the facts of the matter is that the issues of primordial sentiments were very much, at play. Unless don't want to call it spade a spade. And if you don't call it spade a spade, how do you solve the problems? How do you move on? How do you get it right? So I'm a politician, I'm a key player in the politics, and I'm telling you that those things are not in any way, adding to what we would want to have as a matter of having the economy performing. Because, when you have the situation where people look at each other, not from Nigerian perspective, but from, what language does he speak? What is his region? What ethnicity does he belong to? Those are things that are militating against the promise of the greatness of this country. And we must address them. You don't sweep them under the carpet and think that you are making progress, because it will rear its ugly head, sooner than later. So that's why I'm saying it. But the saving grace, like I said, is that we have people that I believe personify the solution to this country, especially the president we have today. The president we have today is a Democrat. He has lived all his life as a Democrat. He knows what the problems of this country are. And what is the most important thing is for you to have the knowledge to know what your problems are. Now, the easiest thing is how to apply the solutions. Because once you know the problems, you must be able to find a way to solve those problems. So, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saddled with the problem of solving, those problems which he lived his life through. How does he leave a legacy that will not be the legacy of where we are coming from? Where we are coming from is not something that we are proud of. We don't want it. I don't want a situation where somebody appears today and you cannot vote for him because of the quality of knowledge, the track record, what he can deliver. You look at him from the prism of, what does he speak? Is he a Muslim? Is he a Christian? I know we have those things. We must solve the problem. That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm not in any way saying that, like I told you, we moved on.
All right.
But problems must be addressed. If you pretend they don't exist, I don't know who is fooling who.
All right.
In that respect.
All right, Agilapo, I would like to also gauge your thoughts, around some of the opening remarks of Dr. Yabagi, especially with the benefit of a hindsight now. The elections have come and gone. And like he said, some of those primordial sentiments that accompanied the elections have not exactly, thrown up, have not allowed for us to make the kind of progress that we ought to make. What do you think were the major issues around the last election, especially, that this government is finding difficult to divorce, itself from and make the kind of progress that we all are looking forward to?
Yeah, so we had a very hotly contested elections in Nigeria, and if you look at the election space that we had, several key issues affected the elections. We had the issues of identity. Of course, we had the Muslim ticket and all of the controversies that threw up. We had the issues between generational politics, the young people, and then the older generations and all of that. And making it worse, making it more frontal was the fact that the major candidates that were thrown up in the election represented different ethnic blocs. So that was a very big issue that I think still remains till today. We had the issue of insecurity pre the election, on the election day, and then post elections. That I think has endured till this moment. We had the issue of incumbency. If you looked at the campaign, you saw how in some states you couldn't even see the campaign pictures of different opposition parties because they weren't allowed really to even to have their campaign posters or billboards mounted with different excuses. in some way denying venues, in some other way just bringing up amounts that were very high for people to pay and all of that. And we could see all of these issues, how it has rolled up to the post-election stage. The role of the judiciary and the courts too. I will begin with the issue of identity politics. We now see situations where, although we had, like for example, the Plateau killing and all of that, that have been twisted to religious dimensions and all of that. Although these things have been there for quite a long while, but we cannot deny the fact that with the identity politics that that was thrown up during the elections, it has deepened. Of course, the southeast too, also going to their shell to say that we don't feel safe in Nigeria. We don't feel that we have a stake in this country. All of these are issues that have endured. And then look at the issue of incumbency. Look at what is happening in Rivers State. That was thrown up from the election. So we saw the role client patron plays, what we call godfatherism plays, and how that manifests in the post-election stage. So for example, you will see that whether or not Wike and Fubara had agreed, at the end, it would have been not for the benefit of the state, really, because perhaps if they had agreed on the share of resources, whether by appointment or whether on state resources, it would mean that it will be undermining the development of the state. And whether or not, even if they don't agree, what is simply happening now, it has a risk of throwing the states into some kind of conflict. And the Niger Delta is coming out from decades of of rife and conflict, and it's a place that is politically tense and conflict ridden also. So it is not a place where we are going to you are going to risk some kind of political instability. So that has also still remained till today. The issue of insecurity. We are afraid before the elections that the Northeast has issues of insecurity, Northwest banditry, Southeast had issues. We had oil theft and piracy in the South and all of that. I am not sure that has changed till today. Look at the issue with Sokoto. Look at the issue with Plateau, and all of these things are coming up. We are still afraid, and even if we are going to hold the election next year, even the Edo election that is coming up next year, the issue of insecurity is still coming back to the fore. So I don't think that has also changed too much, and the role of the court too has not really changed from 1999 till date, and from the election that we've had a situation where the trust in the court processes have reduced and diminished over time. So I think that the issues we had with the elections, have endured till now.
But in talking about the identity politics, let's talk about the cost of it, because one of the obvious issues that came up as a result of that was the fact that nobody was talking about issues anymore. It was all about Igbo presidency, it was about Emilokon, it was about the Northern agenda, and all of these, political figures that were the front runners, so to say, were in one way or the other channeling, pandering, and positioning themselves to represent either the region or appear to be the choice of the people by, re-echoing some of those dog whistles or rhetorics that allow people to feel a certain type of way so that they can align with them. Give us a sense of how much that cost us in terms of politically becoming a lot more enlightened, so that we talk about the issues, talk about the manifesto, and break it down to a point where Nigerians really understand this is what is on the table. This is what candidate A, candidate B is bringing to the table, because we were not allowed to have that conversation because everything was being drowned by Muslim ticket, Igbo presidency, Emiloko, the Northern agenda, and things like that.
Yeah, so that steals quite a lot from us, if you look at all of the pre-election campaigns, and then even on election day and after elections, you will see that many of the issues that we have, very teething problems that we have, the unemployment issues, the insecurity issues, we are left and to the background, and we're discussing issues of basically about personalities, ethnic attacks, and all of that. That steals quite a lot from us. I am not even sure that many of Nigerians, I'm afraid to say that perhaps half of Nigerians did not even get to see the manifesto of the various political parties. And that is why we can't even hold the government to task, really. So if you've told us nothing and then you're doing nothing, how can we say you're doing nothing? Because you told us nothing in the first place. So really, I think that has to change, and it's something that, you know, that takes quite a lot from us, even in terms of accountability. So by now, the government has been here for quite some time. We would have been thinking, in the first 6 months, you said you will do this. Why have you not done this? But what can we say that the government said it would do in 6 months? We didn't see that, because one, you know, the current president said it's a miracle, it is done, and then, you know, the Peter Obi was, oh, it's generational politics. The youth need to be at the fore, and all of that. So that was what held sway. So we cannot practically even say this is what you said you will do in 6 months. This is what you will say you will do in 1 year. That you know, that is very dangerous for Nigeria and for, you know, citizens that needs to hold the government accountable. So that's still quite a lot from us.
All right, Alhaji, graduating the conversations forward, with all the issues that we saw pre-elections, some analysts like yourself have felt that if the conduct of the election itself would have helped to dull some of the tensions that we had pre-elections, and maybe from there we can start a process that will help us heal and unite us sort of as a nation. How would you evaluate the conduct of the 2023 presidential elections and gubernatorial in the face of some of the things that we saw, some of the promises that were made, and how it does appear we fell short of some of those plans, whether it is with uploading results real time as promised by INEC, or some of the shenanigans that we saw play out in places like Adamawa, a very small state where we had to wait for results for several days, when larger states have had to turn in their result, from even different difficult terrains have had to turn in their result, and then we saw that rubbish. We saw an announcement from a delegated official, only to be renounced by a counter announcement in Abuja and all of that. What are your thoughts today, you know, when you look back at all that played out?
Well, I think all of us were victims, including INEC, the electorates, political parties, and whatever. Victims of what? Of a state capture. That's a state capture in Nigeria. And until we can break, you know, that state capture and free, you know, the potential that this Nigeria has and the opportunities available, you know, we'll continue to go in this rigmarole, you know, this vicious cycle. Because what do I mean? You see, the National Assembly had abrogated to themselves, you know, the power to continue to hold on to power. That is why even the Electoral Act given to us has so many, you know, obscurity. I mean, so much obscurity and contradictions, and some of them were deliberately, you know, put there so that they will continue to
perpetuate themselves.
Yes, perpetuate themselves in power, and that's the price we are paying today. You know, I'm sure you remember what Nigerians had to go through to get the so-called automatic transmission of results from the polling units to the voter. You know, that took, you know, CSOs, what have you, to start demonstrating and what have you. But at the end of the day, what do you get? You know, it's the same. What was the manual process is still left. They didn't tamper with what they wanted to keep. What they want to keep? Collation. They wanted collation to remain manual so that it can be influenced. You know, and it remains up today as we speak. It's manual, the collation. You know, in fact, the transmission was left as a choice. You know, so how much more can you really be dubious with your citizens? You know, as a National Assembly, I mean, of a federation. You know, so that's why I say we are all victims, including INEC. You know, my interaction with INEC, you know, is of people that were really fiercely committed to delivering on their mandate. You know, the energy sunk in, the money sunk in, the sleepless nights and the programs, the innovations and everything. You know, but end of the day, they were left with what happened.
Yeah, engineer, as part of the inter-party, advisory council,
yes.
do you feel the neutrality and the independence of INEC is being threatened when you see the president, elect or nominate people, and then the National Assembly confirm people who have partisan ties with the ruling party? Because earlier on you were talking about state capture.
Yes.
Do you feel threatened by it? Because even President Muhammadu Buhari did that with Loretta Onate, even though
yes.
She was pushed out of that nomination. But this time around, we've seen people successfully get into. Does this threaten the integrity, the credibility of future elections in this country?
When you say INEC is not just the buildings or the computers; it's the human beings that will run the place, isn't it? So if these human beings from the beginning are compromised, what do you expect? Garbage in, garbage out. So that's why I'm saying there's a state capture, and that Nigerians wake up to this state capture thing, and then we go back to the commission reports that we have had. The waste report is there, the money report is there, all these reports, and even the National Assembly, they have these reports. So why didn't they, actualize or activate or allow those, wonderful, very important suggestions or proposals, that were made in those reports or amendments that were recommended? Why didn't they take them into account when they were bringing down these laws? Why did you leave INEC in the hands of the presidency? When you know already the presidency has the police, it has all the security agencies. They are the beck and call of the president. One single person that is often than not also a player is also participating in the election too. And this person who is supposed to be, is the one that will now dictate, what he wants. And they are human beings. That's what I'm saying. They are not just buildings. When you say police, only buildings. It's the human beings. If these human beings, their future and their livelihoods is in the hands of one man, you want to go and tell that person that you didn't win your election, it's not conceivable. We are not being fair. That's why I say we are all victims, and we must wake up and then free ourselves from that scenario which we have today. And so many things are there. It's not that they don't know. They know, but they are taking people for granted. That, okay, what would they do? If we pass the law, we're past it. So you do what can you do? So it's a hopeless situation, but it's also hopeless because Nigerians are now beginning to understand the injury or the harm that is being done to not only their own, lives and things, but even the future of this country that we are toying with, that we are destroying. Simply because one man wants to occupy a position, he now sacrifices everything. Doesn't matter again. So we must stop that. Look at even how the independence of the three arms of government, how it's been obliterated. It doesn't exist anymore. It exists only on paper. Because the same executive appoints the judiciary, the same executive will select, the people that will pretend over the National Assembly, the principal officers. It's the presidency that supports them, that campaign for them, that said this is the person we want, and the same thing at the state level. So where is democracy? If you don't have independence of such key institutions of the system that are supposed to be, so that you have checks and balances, so that this system can survive and serve its purpose. It's not serving its purpose as it is today.
Then, we engineer talked about I want to apologize to our guest at home. I seem to be coming up with different face for DAYBREAK. I've interfaced with him over the last 15 years in different capacity. First as Director of Weight and Measures in the then Ministry of Trade. So he has evolved in my own eye into different things. So I call him different things. He's talked about...
I was a consultant.
Absolutely. He's talked about state capture. And in the whole things that have panned out, the elections, the nomination and support of who becomes the Senate and the Speaker of the House, we saw clearly the hands of Esau and the voice of Jacob, and it has gone on even with bills that have gone to the national, whether it is in respect of borrowings or wanting something expressly passed. As much as there are public outcry against these things, they just take a stroll. Including the nominations for ministerial slots in the National Assembly. How do we begin to break away from this practice? How does the citizen, as a collective, what can we do really to begin to get these institutions to represent what they truly are, which is supposed to be the voice of the people, rather than everybody just becoming... What's the danger really in the way we have managed things leading to this point?
Yeah, so I will begin with the danger. The danger is what we see all around West Africa, with the military coups and counter coups going on. I'm thinking that Nigerian leaders ought to be watchful. But of course, in our usual manner, we think that it can't happen in Nigeria. That is a big danger, and that's where I will start from. Engineer Yabagi actually took the words out of my mouth, when he talked about state capture, and it's deep. It's not just the capture of the legislature or the judicial and all of that. Every institution it's actually captured in Nigeria. So you have strong individuals, that supersedes all of the strength of various institutions. So if you are perhaps going to a particular state, the people you are going to talk to, and the rest of the citizens do not actually matter. If you are going to a particular local government, we are going to talk to, and the rest of the institutions and people do not really matter, because they are in the actual sense, they are the owners of the local government. They are the owners of the state. So you can see perhaps the Wiki and the Fubara issue. They are negotiating a state between the both of them, really. So what you think do not matter. I see people even discuss on national television to say, why leave them to discuss the issues among themselves? But you are discussing about me perhaps as a citizen of that particular state, and I should allow you to discuss, and I don't really matter in the agreement. It's actually a very, very funny scenario. So the judiciary has been captured, the legislature has been captured, INEC itself has been captured, every institution of the state has been captured, and that for me it's actually a very grave danger. For me, the solution would be for citizens to take the bull by the horn. Really, everywhere there has been a change, although there is no one straight way to making any form of drastic change, but in anywhere there has been a change, the citizens have had to say, we are fed up with this particular system. We saw it with the last elections. Nobody would have believed that a dead force would perform in that particular kind of in that manner. What I will implore Nigerians is that I think we shouldn't be discouraged. We should go out and demand for our right. This country is our country. Rather than leaving the country in droves and then leaving it for those people that think they own the country, I think we should fight for the soul of this country, because really, at the end, democracy is about the people. And if the people are complacent, if the people do not rise, I think that the leaders will continue to take us for a ride. And at every particular time when Nigerians speak up, if we go to the street, if we demand accountability, there is no way that a few elites, can break the strength and collectivity of the Nigerian people. But the thing is, but the big danger again is that will identity allow us? Will religion allow us? Will the differences that we have and the manipulations of the elite class allow us to unite and then form that common people, that will overthrow this kind of subversive and very wicked system. So really,
when you say identity will not allow us, with the hunger in town, I'm not sure anybody shows up in the filling station and they care to know where you're coming from before they tell you fuel says that 616 naira per liter. How much of that hunger, do we need to see to begin to find unity around purpose and issues and begin to break away from this identity policy? What else do we need to? What kind of social mobilization at the grassroots do we need to see? And what kind of leadership would propel that kind of movement? We saw them in the Arab Springs. They developed their leadership right on the streets from a few days of protesting to say, okay, we can unite forces and push for this kind of difference. Can we see those kind of revolution? I don't think we like the word revolution so much in Nigeria, but can we see those kind of mobilizations, happen in our streets? Get some kind of leadership around and push forward. I know how much the government as an institution try to break what do you call that movement now? The NSAS movement and all of that. Where are we going to find that lone voice?
Well, I think that inevitably it is happening. and it is just happening slowly that we don't know. You know, if you look at all of the insecurity that we have, and non-state actors capturing various places that even the government cannot even go to. I mean, so in the Northwest, you have communities where the government cannot go. People are loyal to bandits and terrorists. You have in the places like Southeast where insecurity has taken over some places that even the government cannot interfere. These are disaffection against the Nigerian state, and it is happening. So, I think that there is actually no template for a revolution, really. It can happen anyhow, but as the state is becoming so ungovernable, as hunger is increasing, people will inevitably revolt against the Nigerian state. And don't forget, there are political leaders today that cannot go to their communities. They can't go back to their villages or states anymore because they are also afraid. So if you go to their villages, you see the fence. The fence is almost like a prison yard, you know, just because they are afraid of the revolt of the people. But it will inevitably happen. But of course, like you said, the biggest threat that we have is that many people still have, you know, their strings attached to political leaders. So they feel that if we speak up against those people, where will our next meal come from? Until the hunger is strong enough for us to realize the fact that, you know, that Nigeria is for everyone. And if we share what we have equitably, we are going to be better for it. I think when we get to that particular stage, a change will definitely come.
And engineer, talking about that, just doubling down on how the political class, and I know you're part of the political class, have weaponized some of these structural issues, whether it's unemployment, poverty, or insecurity, to their benefit by exploiting some of the gaps that exist in between. We've also seen voter turnout significantly being impacted in this election yet again, because we have the president in Aso Rock right now with one of the lowest win margins in the history books. I mean, you could talk about the performance of the thought force, as Mr. Angilapo has really pointed out, but for some people it was APC versus PDP version 1 with Atiku and PDP version 2 with Peter Obi, because if you put them back together, it was almost, you know, a couple of 100,000 votes more than what they got in 2019 with both of them. So it was almost Atiku and Peter Obi splitting the votes they had back in 2019. But let's talk about that disillusionment where Nigerians are pretty much active, especially the young demographic, on social media, but the heated participation online did not translate to more votes on election day, not as much as we expected anyway. So talk to us about what you think is happening to, you know, this growing disillusionment with the political process, the election itself. It appears Nigerians, as millions more we appear to have on our voter register, millions more do not show up on election day. What do you think is happening there?
Well, you know, politics is about interest, you know, and regardless of what people do before the elections, when the election is taking place, the real Nigeria, you know, becomes visible. The real Nigeria is a Nigeria that is poor. The real Nigeria is Nigeria that is ignorant. The real Nigeria is Nigeria that has been manipulated in so many ways. You know, docile. So that's what you see at the election, when elections are taking place. You see somebody who will even say, yeah, I'm here, please come and pay for me. You know, or they've appointed somebody who will collect money just to address that poverty that they're, you know, facing. So that's the reality you see. Forget about the noise that we make before the elections. When the elections are taking place, the real Nigeria, you know, shows up. And there's nothing you can do about that. So we have to address we have to go to the core, to the roots of the problem. You know, ignorance and poverty is there. You say politicians have weaponized those things. You know, well, I think, you see, my regret is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, his first day, the inaugural speech, two things came out very, very, very strong. You know, he was so resolved to solve our economic problems, identified to be the issue of fuel subsidy,
And exchange rate.
and the exchange rate. Exactly. Exchange rate too is subsidy.
That's right.
We're subsidizing Naira,
Yeah.
indirectly subsidizing, as it has now shown,
Yeah.
MFLA and his friends, and those that are connected. Those are the ones we are subsidizing. The same thing with the fuel subsidy.
Nothing has been substantiated, by the way, by the courts.
Yeah, by the courts, because we talk about state capture, isn't it? So these are people that are very, very influential, notoriously, influential. So you see, and then he also mentioned one thing. He talked about the rule of law. So to any listener, you say, "Oh, okay, this man has gotten it right," and he knows the problems. Believe me, Bola Ahmed Tinubu knows the problems of Nigeria. But the problem now is, you see, it's just like what happened during Buhari. Here, Buhari has a problem of insecurity. And who else would you look for to solve the problem of insecurity, if not somebody that personifies the track records and everything that Buhari, had? But for some reasons, they couldn't get it right to really deal with the problem. Okay, you now have somebody I can call a businessman, an economist, an accountant, at the helm of affairs, and our problem is economy. But still, they are still not able to get their hands around it to solve the problem. You talk about debt, piling up, it's increasing. You talk about inflation, it's going out to the roof. You talk about unemployment, the same thing. You talk about what? The growth of the economy, exchange rate, Naira is...
Are you saying we're repeating the same mistake?
The same mistake. What happened during Buhari is happening now.
So the worry...
The issue is not really...
Isn't it too early, though, engineer? It's barely 7 months. Of a 4-year term.
No, not been too early or been too something. That's that. We have to be sincere. We have to be sincere. You see, I tell you why. We are part of the reasons why we are going through the problems we are going through. Buhari seemingly was in love with his constituency. So there are hard decisions that were supposed to be taken. He didn't take them, or didn't take them in good time, because he was part of that constituency. That's the security outfit I'm talking about. And look at where we are today, security-wise.
You're talking about the service chiefs staying there for so long, right?
Promoting them, giving them what they are not supposed to, not taking hard decisions that are supposed to be taken because he's from that constituency. The same thing. I remember Tinubu is not taking decisions he's supposed to take.
Can you give us a sense of...
Yes, I'll tell you. Look at the oil and gas sector. The only reason where we are today is because that sector is the conundrum of corruption. MFLA is just the effect. Where is the MFLA getting the money from? From the oil. Is that not true? We talk about subsidy, that the money subsidy was going to private pockets. Who are those private? Are they spirits? How do you come and then promote MFLA? What do you call that, my carry? In NNPC? And you say you are fighting corruption. What has been done to oil and gas?
Do you have
nothing?
Do you have some evidence against Gary that
go to 90? 90 will tell you. They have been telling us that you are losing $4 billion every year. That's conservative figure. If I put you as the manager of a company, you are losing such money, I will not renew your contract.
All right. Let us delve into some other areas. Dr. Aguilapo, shortly after this boat set sail, we had the off-cycle election. And one would have thought that there are very important lessons we learned from the general elections that we would have applied in the off-cycle election. But it turned out here, I was saying to Abdul, that the conversations around the off-cycle election were not even about the performance of the governors in the states where they were going for a second term, or what the other persons were bringing to power. It was a microcosm of what we saw in the national election, top to bottom, whether it was security situation in the states, or godfatherism, or governors not allowing any other persons to breathe, and some of the issues you have captured. And also leading to that, and still in the table, were what we saw, the frosty relationship, the age-long frosty relationship between governors and their deputies. That never seemed to go out of the window, it appears. We're seeing Shaibu and Godwin, incidentally, and maybe fortunately, Lucky Aidatiwa has emerged, but we know what went on between him and his principal until, God rest his soul, he had to depart to greater glory yesterday. Does it appear that we learn any lessons at all from how bad we have done things in the past? Or is this just politically expedient or convenient for some of these cycles to continue to repeat itself?
You know, I was discussing with somebody and I said, if you leave Nigeria, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and you've witnessed like 3 elections before you leave, you can conveniently write an election, an election report without visiting Nigeria, because the issues do not actually change. And it's actually very, very saddening, So for the general elections, like you said, we had logistic issues with INEC. For the off-cycle elections, those things came to bear again. And we are wondering, this was the same INEC we all shouted about in terms of logistics. What now happened again? We had the issues of insecurity. I mean, we had that. We still had repetition again. And in fact,
even though we had more security people deployed in the off-cycle
exactly.
election.
And then we're wondering what is really happening. And then more brazenly, we now even saw, in the Kogi case where we had pre-filled election sheets. That did not even happen in the general elections. So it became even worse in the off-cycle elections, and we are wondering where we are going. And let's not forget that, no matter how you look at democracy, of course, the election is not synonymous with democracy per se, but you cannot deny the fact that in an indirect democracy that we practice now, election is the beginning. And the way you choose your leaders are very, very important. First off, it breeds legitimacy crisis if they're not selected in the right way, because people do not feel attached to these people. They don't feel like they voted these people to power. And these people perhaps do not have the right to now command them. So it becomes an issue where people naturally just have that civil disobedience against the government. So for example, you see a public tap running, and then you say, no, I can't put up this tap, it is not my property, it's the government property. So it is like, I don't have a stake in this government. After all, I did not vote these people to power. So even when the government is failing, you're actually celebrating the failure of the government, because you feel, for all you care, these people do not represent you. So I think that the off-cycle election was, like you said, a representation of the fact that we've not changed at all. Nothing really has changed, and it's so saddening that it's happening this way. Going forward to the issue about the deputies and then the governors, it is also the issue about state capture and the fact that democracy in Nigeria is not about the people. It's about the control of structures. So when people talk about structures, I've come to realize lately that the structures are not the people. The structures are basically who you have put in power, the commissioners, the special advisors, and not the people. So the discussion is just completely erasing the people out of the equation. So if you look at all of the deputies, the governors are thinking the deputies perhaps want to either they want to contest an election, or they want to overtake their structures or diminish their political relevance. And I simply ask the question: if you are a popular candidate and the people are with you, even if your deputy is vying for the governorship position, how does that really affect you? Because at the end, if you want to contest, you still know that because of what you've done, the people will stand with you. But because you know that that you win elections not through the people, it is either through money, either through violence, and you know that your deputy perhaps understands the game and can match you in that game, the best way is to undermine him before that time.
Right. Okay. And let's double out on some of the structural issues, politically speaking. And you look at the landscape, right? And most political scientists will say, listen, when you want to talk about political reform, the central institutions at the heart of the conversation are political parties. And for so long, many Nigerians believe political parties have not been the agents of change that they need to be. I'm not trying to indict the ADP, but I'm talking about generally the political parties. Because if you look at the lack of political education across the country, it's very telling that we have these strong political parties. We had one that touted itself as the largest political party on the continent. I think APC is trying to take that, position after its, registration back in 2019. We have these big, political parties, but when you look at their impact on the lives of everyday average Nigerian, it tells of a dysfunction. What, in your view, is responsible for this growing dysfunction? Because we've also seen that in 2023, where people don't necessarily align with political parties, they align with individuals, and in most cases, to the highest bidder, which also tells a story about this lack of national consciousness about this Nigeria project that we're all on board, as Dengefa was trying to say earlier, that people don't feel like they have a stake in building this country.
Yeah, well, the idea of political party is supposed to be a vehicle, isn't it, which you use to achieve your belief. You can call it ideology or things like that. But in a political party, there has to be something that underpins or that brings people together. Regardless of, that's why he's saying, elections are not just about something. It's supposed to be the idea. What do you want for your country? What's the dream that you have as an organization? But unfortunately, in our own situation in this country, people are more concerned about what you call, stomach infrastructure. They hardly think twice about jettisoning or leaving one political party that perhaps they've used to win election, because the only reason why they're there is to win election. It's not that they have any
attachment connection.
To say, oh, we are people that came together because we believe in one thing and we want to make sure that happens in this country. No, what everybody is like a rat race that we are in this country today. And this is why we are saying that the National Assembly must be held accountable, for the failure, the debacle that we have in this democratic experiment that we are in, So, and then the people themselves, though, like I said, all of us are victims, but the people themselves must begin, to understand that it is not just about the pittance that you are given, No. It's about your future. It's about the Commonwealth. It's about the fact that somebody that will preside over or pretend over the affairs of your country is supposed to be there at your instance. It's supposed to be there because you want him to be there. The office of the citizen is number one office. This should be number one, but that's not the case in our own case. So now the challenge for I think maybe researchers or students of those who should go and find out how do we really get it right in terms of people playing politics for the sake of those axiomatic reasons.
Yeah, but about those vehicles,
yes,
are they functional vehicles? Because we see what's happening, for instance, in just the misfortune that has befallen the PDP, all stemming from this seeming factionalization where they don't hold party congresses. The parties themselves don't appear to be democratic. They don't want to hold those congresses because the powers that be want to control those instruments, control the vehicle that you're talking about.
Yes.
So what do we need to do to make those vehicles functional? Because if they're dysfunctional, the only outcome is more dysfunctionality.
The rule of law. If we follow the rule of law, like what happened, unfortunate thing that happened to PDP, now they have seen.
Well, you say unfortunate. Nigerians will say fortunately.
For the APC.
Well, no, PDP was the one that did not conduct their congresses or things like that, isn't it? No, well, I say it's unfortunate because, well, I believe that, like you rightly said, it's just few amongst, the group of PDP in Jos that put them where they are today. So it's unfortunate. It's not that if the larger community of PDP was aware of what these people are doing and the implications of it, they would have stopped that.
All right.
So it's a lesson.
Okay.
That's why I say rule of law. If we stick to rule of law and ensure that people are punished, if they didn't be punished, then we learn quickly, and things will begin to change.
All right.
In the right direction.
All right, Engineer. As we wind down this conversation, one big talking point, especially for those of us who are not exactly politically inclined, is the concern around our leadership recruitment process. You have been there for so long, and by the virtue of your age, you would have seen it all. What would you say, is responsible? How do we fix that leadership recruitment process in Nigeria? We see a lot of people like you in politics, and we begin to wonder, where is the place of mentoring? Who are the people that will be taking over from the Yabagi? Because all we see is once another political cycle is here, somebody jumps out from nowhere. I was telling him about a certain governor I knew nothing about until he arrived at the scene. Whereas in other saner climes, if there are any such one, you see the building blocks, what they did at their professional level, what kind of changes they brought about that ushered them to the next level, maybe to a mayorship level, and then they graduate like that to maybe the House of Representatives and all of that, and you say, okay, idea-wise, this is what this person stands for. And even with the political parties, you can tell what their ideologies are, whether they are socialist in nature or capitalist. In this case, we can't pin a political party to any ideology at all, other than just being a vehicle that serves no other purpose than to convey you to a point and dump you, or you dump them, as the case may be, and move on. What can we do about that recruitment process, so that we can begin to breed the kind of people?
There's so much we can do. There's so much we can do. And it comes back to the rule of law. If the National Assembly is very, very sincere and they are serving the people of this country, they would have made laws that will make it impossible, for you to leave one political party, to another without genuine reasons, something that is flimsy reasons, you just dump the party, and you jump to another one. So that's why you do not have what you can call succession plan in political parties, because people are just there for short-term objectives. Nobody is there for long-term objectives, unfortunately. So, but we can bring out, National Assembly can bring out laws. Right. Like you can't have a governor just leaving one party to another party, and he goes with, the benefits, the title, and he still remains the governor. It's not possible. When in the first instance, it's not his name that is on the ballot. Right. It is the symbol of this party that is on the ballot. In fact, INEC doesn't know him. They only know the political party. Everything goes through the political party. So how then do you wake up and the man will leave your party and he goes with all the things all the benefits and everything, and nobody says anything? They say the law says he can be there. What kind of law is that?
Okay.
So that's where we should start, from, making laws that are sensible, that are for this country, that are for building, democracy, like you are saying, that are for ensuring that you have a stable polity.
Okay.
But what we have today, which is there deliberately by people that you elect to go and represent you, those self-serving laws, that's what they're making.
Okay.
So that's how we can get it right.
Okay. Gentlemen, it's safe to say that there's a lot more to unpack, especially looking at the Nigerian situation going forward. But all the same, we're going to have to anchor the conversation here. Thank you most kindly for joining us. We really do appreciate you for being a part of the conversation today. Engineer Yusuf Yabagi, the outgoing national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. He's going to explain to us in a very brief moment why he's outgoing and not former already, because I believe the elections have already been concluded, right?
No, not really.
Okay, not yet. So still the chairman then, beg your pardon. And we've also been talking to Angilapu, Dengiefa Angilapu, who is a political scientist, research analyst with the Center for Democracy and Development. As always, thank you very much for your insights. Appreciate you very much for stopping by. Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Right. We're going to take a quick break. Daybreak returns in just a moment. We'll bring you the latest news stories across some select national dailies as we take a look at their front pages this morning. Newspaper review is coming up next.
Welcome back to our segment where we'll be looking at all the stories that made it to the front pages of the newspaper this morning. Select newspapers, I dare to say, this morning. And as it's a tradition, we would begin with the Daily Trust. And the Daily Trust this morning, it's a sad day for Nigeria, and it's aptly captured by the front page there. And if you like the use of colors, Sakeredoli dies at 67, Ayedatiwa sworn in as Ondo governor. Announces appointments, late governor's aides resigns. Well, that was quick. Tinubu.
Yeah, it was quick, but also you get a sense that because of the hostility that took part, that shaped the conversation in Ondo State for the past couple of months, they already know that they're going to be on their way out.
That's right.
Because they're in the bad books, so to say.
That's right.
So it's better to save face and resign than to be kicked out, I guess.
Announces appointments, late governor's aides resign, Tinubu, Buhari, Atiku, others mourn. Tributes to ex-speaker Gali Na'aba, buried in Kano. And I think we saw footages there of the vice president, making it from Jos to Kano to be part of that interment ceremony.
Aidatiwa has just announced 3 days of mourning in Ondo State.
I would have thought that would have been the first proclamation or announcement after his swearing in yesterday. But there were two big losses for this country, if you like, people who have paid their prices.
They look older than their ages.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
Akeredolu, they say, is just 67.
Yeah. It's basically 1 or 2 years away from Gali Na'aba. But just looking at the faces alone, you would think they were 10 years apart.
Yeah.
And they make their mark very early on in the life of this country. This country will miss them so dearly. Two other stories: malhandling of CBN investigations reports can create distrust and panic. This is coming from experts, very notable ones there, including Professor Obada, who is a member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank, as well as Professor Waleke. You want to look at that report. Just as the Apex Bank assures depositors of the safety of their funds. Edo 2024, Obaseki slashes Shoaibu's budget. Deputy Governor insists on competence. I hear the budget dropped from 17 billion to 300 and something million. That's crazy.
So they made up in public, but apparently that was not an honest one.
Yeah.
There's still some bad blood there. But, just moments ago we were talking about it. You made a point of it, and I would say it goes back to 2003, 2004, just before 2006, and heading into the elections, the famous Obasanjo-Atiku feud.
That's right.
I think that solidified this whole relationship between the boss and the supposed next of kin politically.
Yeah. And to other stories, how cyber attack exposed Nigeria's IT security vulnerability in 2023. You remember famously how the then Minister of Communication would tell us that we had over 1.5 million attack on the eve of the presidential election directed at government's website. Bandits always a step ahead of government. Sultan, embrace peace, stop killing, Shatima tells Plateau people. ACF, that's Arewa Consultative Forum, calls for state of emergency in banditry-prone communities, and Northern Reps seek support for victims. These are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust.
Let's take a look at the front page of the Guardian newspaper for today, December 28th. End of an era. Sunset for Akeredolu. New dawn for Lucky Aiyedatiwa. And, you know, it's very telling that the former governor, may so rest in peace, is now given the smaller picture frame. And the new sheriff in town, you can see in there, dressed immaculately, from former to acting and now substantive governor of Ondo State. There he was, you know, as he was being sworn in yesterday, and the tributes flow in. Civil society groups, lawyers mourn Akeredolu and Gali Naaba. Rivers elders write Tinubu Fubara on illegality of peace pact. Listen, Fubara has thrown in the towel, but apparently the people in River State, at least some of his kingsmen, do not believe that that is the best deal they can get.
You know, we're trying to wrap our heads around the developments in Rivers, some of the public comments of the governor, as opposed to the positions of stakeholders in the state. And somebody just said in passing that the people are doing the talking for the governor, and he's simply putting up the act to suggest.
Right. You think?
That, well, I'm not sure what to think at this point, considering that the president has to praise him in his Christmas speech, as and dare to even call him his son. Well, everybody is the president's president's son, but he dared to. I think he sort of won the heart of the president by making public pronouncements that suggest that he's going to go with whatever the president has suggested. But that is not exactly the comments on ground, and I doubt he would ignore some of the concerns.
This fight is long, you know, is far away from over. You can definitely bet on that. Well, read more on that on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Federal government assures justice for victims of Plateau attacks. OK's immediate circa. Haven't we heard this before? Justice for Tudumbiri, justice for every other extrajudicial killings and attacks. Well, that famous fine, FCCPC slams $110 million fine on British American Tobacco for violation. Zenith Bank named Best Bank for Digital Solutions. Tinubu seeks council's monarch's support for development. We had that story for you earlier in the day. And Plateau killing, Sultan charges government on proactive intelligence gathering. More on this and many other stories across the pages of the Guardian newspaper for today.
All right, we'll move on to the Nation newspaper. And it is staying with development in Ondo State. Aiyedatiwa steps in after Akeredolu. Governor died in his sleep in German hospital. He was fearless, says Tinubu in tribute. Governors, Buhari, senators, APC leaders, Jimo Ibrahim, NBA, others mourn. And there we see pictures of the new governor after taking his oath of office yesterday, as well as that of the late governor Akeredolu, born 1956, which puts him at about 67, is it?
Yeah, 67.
Yeah. To other stories, Shetima, Shekarau, Kwankwaso, others bid Naaba farewell as ex-House of Reps leader buried. No plan to take over banks, says CBN. I think this reaction is coming in the face of how the special investigation report has been handled. The question of bank ownership and how they acquired and all of that, very technical issues. One would have thought that we would have treated those issues with some level of discretion, because even where a takeover would happen, you don't want to mismanage that information to forestall a run on some of these banks. I mean,
but don't you think it was calculated? I don't think the special investigator would have just decided to run his mouth just for the fun of it. I think it was a calculated attempt to get the information out there to perhaps gauge the public response or something, so that some of those informations do not get, hidden in a way, or
yeah,
get
but
swept under the
you also
carpet.
have to respect the authorities that commission the report. You are not working for yourself in it. So naturally, the way government works, with what some of the experts told us yesterday in the bid to develop our stories, they said there are procedures for these things. Even where you have done the best of reports, they are subject to scrutiny, and a white paper is usually issued, which then shows the direction of government. So it's not enough for you to do that and then go ahead and leak out those reports before the president even takes his time to independently look at those reports and make his mind up on what is best, because some problems have political solutions. You don't have to do things in the way you have suggested. But like you said, we cannot completely say what the ideas are behind why these reports were leaked and what objectives they are meant they are meant to achieve. But let's see how developments unfolds after these revelations. The president would have to make his position known at some point.
I think the government is trying to win the hearts and minds of the people, because this is now in the public domain, and in the court of public opinion, Emefiele and the likes are guilty
That's right.
of all of these
allegations.
and I think that's what they're trying to achieve.
All right, and I hope they get their day in court to be able to explain some of the mind-boggling revelations in this report. Moving on to other stories, CBN investigator rejects Lemo order's request. I thought his report is done, and they submitted the report to the president. When we saw letters flying around ordering and summoning people to reappear, I said to myself, is this a perpetual responsibility? And where do you derive the power to continue to order people around? Well, let's see how that continues. And Zenith Bank is Nigeria's best in digital solution. And Plateau's mayhem, death toll rises as Vice President condoles with community. And finally, pipeline vendors responsible for explosion in rivers. This is coming from the Nigeria Security Civil Defense Corps.
At Omoku community in River State, they were trying to siphon the fuel on an unguarded pipeline,
we would
and
never
20
learn.
plus people
Never
lost their lives as a result of that. Okay. The Punch newspaper is up next, so let's take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. Some similar stories there, but we start from the top, from the Vice President's visit to Plateau State, where the federal government vows justice. Inspector General sends squad after killers. Always reactive, not proactive. And it's just, really insults the sensibility of people, because all of these agencies have the capability to get ahead of these developments. As the Sultan rightly said, we have to find a way to be proactive regarding security.
That's right.
And preventing some of these devastating incidents from happening. Federal government fines British American Tobacco $110 million, drop criminal charges. Railway debt servicing exceeds revenue by 1,200%, according to a report. The same railway that we are giving free rides.
That's right.
For people. Apparently they're not breaking even, they're not able to make money, and if we keep giving free train rides,
we'll never be able to repay those loans.
Exactly. The big story, of course, is the sad development in Ondo State, where Aiyedatiwa has taken over as President Tinubu, and governors across Nigeria say Akeredolu's death a big loss. Aiyedatiwa lists Akeredolu's achievements, deceased governors, aides resign, workers mourn. Akeredolu, great fighter, says Tinubu, governors, others. Ondo declares 3-day mourning. And you can see there the picture of the unmistakable Aki, or there's other nickname. Is it
Aketi?
Aketi rather, and then the other one too. But he's come to symbolize a true, virtue of political leadership, high quality leadership, I must say.
Arakuri,
yeah. So, and then you have the picture there of the Chief Judge swearing in the new governor of Ondo State, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, as he takes over. In other news, insecurity, economic hardship to worsen in 6 states, according to the World Bank. I can't wait for the day the World Bank will wake up and give Nigerians some cheerful news.
Oh my God.
You know, I think we deserve that, World Bank. If you're listening, we deserve some cheerful, positive news. Find the silver lining somewhere and tell us about it. But obviously, there is no gainsaying this one. Nigerians have been living in this situation for quite some time. If you want to read more about the recent revelation by the World Bank, pick up the Punch newspaper today. Mob kills 2 over alleged murder in Ogun. And finally, ex-speaker Nabba buried in Kano. President, others mourn. That's it on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, we'll move on to the Daily Independent. And on the Daily Independent, the lead story there, it's slightly away from what we have seen with other papers. Heritage Bank in futile effort at attracting strategic investors as Nigerian banks remain safe, sound, CBN assures. Zenith Bank wins Best Bank for Digital Solution in Nigeria. Nigeria FCCPC imposes 110 million fine on British American tobacco, and how Governor Akeredolu died by Ondo government. 5 months after, Lagos Airport's runway light thieves still unknown. We have reached over 90% reinstallation. How do you steal the airport?
I was just about to ask the question. The airport is not like your motor parks where anybody can just walk in anywhere.
To sensitive areas for that matter. And this place is, the Lagos Airport in particular, it's busy 24 hours of the year.
FAN has a new man in charge, right? After the reshuffle.
That's right.
The president did in the aviation sector. So I suppose he should have answers to that.
He should
I think it's an inside job. There is no way someone from outside is going to walk in there on the tarmac and dig up all of these infrastructure and then get away with it.
And to sell where exactly?
I mean, these are specialized equipments. You don't just go to the market and sell them.
All right, to other riders, to the story, we have reached over 90% reinstallation. That's from a FAN source. FAN should make report of investigation public. And that's what the stakeholders are saying, and I think that will be the right thing to do. Tomorrow's stories, we are working to turn around Nigeria's economic fortune. And that's coming from President Tinubu. Tinubu, Jonathan Akpabio, Abbas, Ibori, Mark, Sanwo-Olu, Mons, Akeredolu, Nabba. And finally, Aiyedatiwa sworn in as Ondo governor, appoints CPS and aides. You'll find the pictures there also on the front page of the Daily Independent. And that's it on the front page of the Daily Independent. All right, that's the much we can bring to you today from the front pages of the paper. Unfortunately, our reviewer did not make it to the studio today. He probably would tell us why. The both of them bailed on us during the festive period. I'm sure the attraction of the rice and the chicken was stronger.
Oh, probably.
than discussing Nigeria's problem.
I doubt if Mario Nasser's excuse is the rice and chicken, but I'm sure he's going to have a reasonable explanation as to why he didn't show up today.
All right.
Maybe the producer didn't give him a call. I don't know. But this is his normal routine anyway.
Yeah. But nonetheless, you were able to bring the papers to you, I'm sure. We were able to meet your expectations in some way with some of the papers that we have reviewed this morning. And that's the much that we would be able to accommodate on our show this morning. If you've missed out on what was a very insightful conversation today, you can do well to catch up on our social media handles today on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on TikTok, and be part of all of our conversations going forward. Daybreak will come to you again tomorrow. But for today, I'm Sunday Michael Hagu, and you have a blessed day ahead.
Thank you very much for your time and company. We'll see you tomorrow. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Good morning.